What is up, everybody? Mick here with
Dr. Ellery.
Which we'll probably stop saying that. We'll have little things that pop up here for you guys later. That'll be easy. What we want to talk about today, something political that's been in the news lately, is the Boy Scouts basically banning gay men from being scoutmasters and Boy Scouts. And actually I read about a Eagle Scout. He had all the qualifications, but he was kept from becoming an Eagle Scout. Chris, do you want to go first with your little, your views on it, and then I'll go into with constitutionality and all that fun stuff?
Sure. My views on Boy Scouts banning anybody that's LGBT or lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, for those of you who have been under a rock for a couple years. I don't like it, but I don't think there's anything I can really do about it, although there are some interesting give and take aspects to it, I guess, as far as like their actual rights to discriminate. The one thing that always gets me about it is just that there's a lot of laws, or there's actually a lack of a lot of laws that prevent discrimination to gay people. And I don't know, I just, I think about the smoking ban that they did in Cumberland, and that went all the way to the Eagles, which for those of you who don't have one of those, it's a private club. You pay dues to go there.
Like a moose club.
Yeah,
in West Virginia. Yeah.
And you can't just walk in off the street, so it's not really a public place, it's a private place. And they had to follow the smoking ban, although they did get that extension, but you're not allowed to smoke there anymore. So I kind of think if the government can force a private entity like that to follow that law, then I don't see why they can't step in on this issue there.
That's an interesting point, I will admit. The way I look at and what I'm trying to, as a political science major, the way I try to look at everything is it constitutional, is it not, that kind of thing. I know this has been before the Supreme Court a few times with the Boy Scouts, and each time the Boy Scouts have found under, I think it was the First Amendment, it's basically their right to decide who's in their private organization, because they are a private organization. And that goes to, there was a Supreme Court case, basically what happened, I don't know the name off the top of my head, but it was a African-American gentleman who basically is a political move. He attempted to join the KKK and they denied him, and he took it to the Supreme Court, and it was the same way. They banned, the Supreme Court upheld the side of the KKK, basically said, you're a private organization, you can choose your membership. And I view it almost as
Private organization, so you are allowed to accept who you wish to accept.
Yeah, well, that's what the law. Yeah. The law basically says, as a private organization, you are allowed to, basically, you can discriminate on who you allow into it. So, the only thing with the Boy Scouts that does kind of make me wonder between private and government is government funding. I don't know the numbers on it, but I do know that they get some funding. I'll look it up here.
Which, in journalism, there's an interesting thing as far as like things that are public or private information. And one thing with public is that, and of course there are different degrees here, but it basically says if you get taxpayer money, you are then considered to be a public organization, and thus any information we could request must be made available within certain, within reason. Like Mr. Duncan was talking the other day about the Joe Paterno thing, and he said that it's because Penn State was takes money from the government and grants, that they had to turn over all emails, all information, and the only reason why we didn't before is just because there was no reason to. We didn't have this case, but theoretically, if you take government money, then there are certain aspects of the government that you then have to follow, be you private or public. Now, it'd be like saying, if you don't want to admit gays, that's fine, but if I wanted to ask to see the tax returns for the organization, you would have to give them to me. Now, there is another side, though, as they said, there was an organization that was a private organization that had government grants, and you could request the information from them, but they have certain ways, like, well, you have to pay for the paper, you have to pay for this, and we can also black out anything we want. So there is that give and take there, but I still think that if you take money from the government, the point is you would be looked at as a public entity at that point.
Well, I did get the list up here of what the government does fund to the Boy Scouts, things like that. U.S. Code authorizes the Secretary of Defense to supply lend supplies and equipment and transportation to the Boy Scouts of America. Also, there is, if you are an Eagle Scout, you can be advanced to E2 in the Marine Corps or E3 in all the other branches, kind of like Navy Junior ROTC or any of the JROTC programs. They also, for jamborees and stuff like that, the Department of Defense, and I think the Department of the Army and things like that, they allow Boy Scouts, troops and things like that to participate and have events on, we're outdoors if you haven't noticed.
We made a wise decision to
did.
film in front of a tree during autumn.
Yes. But the Boy Scouts are allowed to have events and stuff on military, U.S. government property and things like that, which is governmental, which...
Actually, I'd like to interject here. I think that part of my problem with the Boy Scouts not allowing any, especially, gay males into their organization, I mean, they've repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell for the military. You can be openly gay in the military now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Yes.
I mean, that's sort of a step that we are taking as a country. I mean, you can argue all you want against any other rights that they're giving gay people nowadays, as I'm sure the detractors would say. But I mean, it's going to happen one way or another. And I just feel like maybe it would be best for the Boy Scouts to just accept, hey, because they're also sending this message that we view this as wrong, and that is very, very surely going to be you're going to be the old KKK members from the 40s and 50s today. That's what they'll be looked at, and maybe that's the attitude they should. There's a difference between fighting for a cause and just kind of being the asshole in the room. And I think that's what they're becoming. They're becoming that. That's what they are.
And I mean, the way I look at it is, like I said, I look at everything regardless of political view. I try to use the legal, how the Constitution would portray it. Like I said, I am working on that constitutional series. But it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, especially if it hits the Supreme Court again. Mainly because they do get a lot of funded government support compared to the KKK, which has no government support for obvious reasons. And I mean, legally in some aspects they can do whatever they choose to do, but on the other hand, they are getting all that funding from the U.S. government, which in other situations would cause places to lose their government funding immediately. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this portrays, or how this plays out if it does come to the Supreme Court again. But it'll be interesting to see. It's a very touchy subject, and like I said, regardless of political beliefs, in some aspects they are in the right. Others, it's gray area almost. So.
Is that about it?
I think that's everything we've got on that subject, but all right, our apologies about that. The SD card, we didn't check to see if it was full before we recorded, so we did find out now. It was full, and it stopped the filming. So
Preparation.
So basically, we just want to sign off now, and thank you for watching. And like I said, we're going to try to keep pretty bipartisan on this. We don't want to alienate anyone. And yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good night.